Hello there, and a very warm welcome to English with Jack. On this channel, we focus on helping you bridge the gap between textbook grammar and the natural, flowing English used in the real world. In today's session, we are going to listen to a story titled The Broken Vase, which centers around a common situation involving a difficult mistake. By following this narrative, you will improve your ability to describe accidents and apologies, whilst learning a very useful idiom about accepting consequences. Fiona had been working for the Foster family for over 3 years. She was responsible for cleaning their large detached house in the countryside while they were away on holiday in Spain. It was a good job. The Fosters were kind people who always paid her on time and often left her biscuits in the kitchen tin. On this particular Tuesday morning, the sun was shining through the tall windows of the drawing room. Dust motes danced in the light, and the house was perfectly silent. Fiona loved the quiet atmosphere here compared to her noisy flat in the city centre. She was dusting the mantelpiece, carefully moving the silver photo frames and heavy candlesticks. In the centre of the mantelpiece sat the Fosters' pride and joy. It was a delicate, antique porcelain vase, painted in a deep shade of blue with gold edges. Mrs. Foster had told her once that it had been in the family for generations.
Fiona knew she should be careful. She usually was very careful. However, her mobile phone suddenly vibrated in her apron pocket with a loud buzzing sound. Startled by the noise, her hand jerked to the left. Her elbow clipped the side of the blue vase. It seemed to happen in slow motion. The vase wobbled for a terrifying second before tipping over the edge of the marble fireplace. It hit the stone hearth with a sickening crash. Fiona froze. She stared down at the jagged shards of blue porcelain scattered across the rug. Her heart began to race in her chest and her mouth went dry. She knelt down and picked up a piece, hoping it might be fixable, but the damage was catastrophic. It was not just cracked, it was destroyed. Panic began to set in as she realized the Fosters were returning tomorrow evening. Fiona ran to the cupboard under the stairs and found a tube of strong adhesive. She returned to the rug and carefully collected every shard of blue pottery. For the next hour, she sat in the afternoon light, trying to piece the vase back together like a complex jigsaw puzzle. Her hands were trembling, which made the delicate work very difficult. She managed to stick the largest pieces together, but there were tiny fragments of dust and clay that could not be fixed. The result was a disaster. The vase looked crooked, and the beautiful gold lines were broken. It was obvious that it had been smashed. She realized that fixing it was impossible. She stared at the ruined object and felt a wave of nausea. A dark thought entered her mind. She could simply throw the pieces in the outside dustbin and pretend she had never seen it. Or perhaps she could say that a window had been left open and a gust of wind had knocked it over. She even considered blaming the neighbour's cat, which often sneaked into the kitchen through the back door. But Fiona was not a liar. She had been raised to be honest, even when it was painful. If she lied now, she would live in constant fear of being discovered. The Fosters treated her like family, and betraying that trust felt worse than the accident itself. Fiona decided she could not leave a note. That would be cowardly. She had to wait for them to return and tell them to their faces. She placed the glued mess on the coffee table, where they would definitely see it. That night, back at her own flat, she could barely eat her dinner. She felt anxious and stressed. The phrase, "face the music," kept spinning around in her head. She knew the idiom well.
It meant accepting the unpleasant consequences of one's actions. Tomorrow, when the Fosters' car pulled into the driveway, she would have to face the music, no matter how loud or scary it might be. She set her alarm for early the next morning, dreading what the new day would bring.
Fiona arrived at the house early the next morning. She spent the day ensuring every other room was spotless, polishing the wooden floors and cleaning the windows until they sparkled. However, the broken vase remained on the coffee table in the drawing room, serving as a constant reminder of her mistake. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, she heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. The Fosters were home. Fiona stood up straight, smoothed down her apron, and took a deep breath. She walked to the front door just as Mr. Foster was carrying the luggage in from the boot of the car. Mrs. Foster walked in first, looking tired from the long drive on the motorway. She smiled when she saw Fiona, but the smile faded when she noticed Fiona's pale face. Fiona did not waste a second. She guided them into the drawing room and pointed to the table. She explained exactly what had happened with the mobile phone and the sudden movement. She did not blame the cat or the wind. She simply said she was clumsy and deeply sorry. She even offered to have her wages deducted to pay for a repair or a replacement, though she knew she could never truly replace an antique. Mrs. Foster walked over to the table and picked up the glued wreckage. She sighed deeply and looked at it for a long moment. The silence in the room was heavy. Finally, she turned to Fiona. She admitted that she was sad because the vase held sentimental value, but she was far more impressed by Fiona's honesty. She told Fiona that accidents happen, and that objects, no matter how old, are just things. Because Fiona had chosen to face the music immediately, rather than hiding the truth, Mrs. Foster trusted her more than ever. She refused to take any money from Fiona's wages. Fiona felt a massive weight lift from her shoulders. It had been a terrifying experience, but telling the truth was definitely the right choice. And that brings us to the end of our story for today. I hope you enjoyed following Fiona's stressful day and her interaction with the Fosters. It is always interesting to see how characters handle difficult situations. Did you notice how the story centered around the idiom, "face the music"? This phrase is perfect for describing moments when we must accept responsibility for our actions, just as Fiona did when she confessed to breaking the vase instead of hiding it. If you found this lesson helpful and want to improve your English further, please remember to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me create more content for you. See you in the next lesson.